Wagwan everybody! In today's episode, we're going to be looking at what would have happened had Salvatore Leone never betrayed Claude in GTA 3. We're going to look at 3 possible scenarios, but before we get to it, let's recall this moment in the game so we have a better understanding of the whole situation. Right, so, as many of you probably remember, during the Portland section in GTA 3 story, Claude is working for the Leone Mafia. He runs errands for 2 of the Mafia's capos, for Salvatore, who was the Don of the Mafia at the time, and for his son, Joey. So, Claude was basically working for every big fish in the Leone Mafia, and with each, he was doing an excellent job, as well as earning very decent money. One of his biggest achievements during this time is sinking the container ship that belonged to the Colombians, and where apparently they were producing their drugs. So, Claude was a very important figure in the Leone Mafia. Among other things, he was massively helping the Mafia in 2 wars they were involved in, the war with the cartel and the war with the triad. You could even say that without Claude, the Mafia would get absolutely crushed by its rivals. And yet, despite all this, in the mission Last Request, Salvatore decides to set Claude up by telling him to pick up the car that he rigged with a bomb. Lucky for Claude, Maria, who was in theory the Don's wife, warned Claude about his trap, thereby saving him from certain death. But someone could ask, why on earth would Salvatore betray Claude if he was so useful not only to him, but also to his whole organization? Well, Maria claims that it was all because she told Sal that she and Claude were an item.
Salvatore thinks that we're going behind his back, so he was offering you to the cartel in order to make a deal. I couldn't let him do that. I mean, the worst thing is, it's all my fault because I told him we were an item. Don't ask me why, I don't know.
That was not true, obviously. As much as we could say that Maria fell in love with Claude, we can't say that Claude really cared about her. Maria was known for talking rubbish, but this time it came with a price. However, another theory that players assume is that Sal betrayed Claude because he was paranoid, as he mentions in GTA LCS, and simply didn't trust Claude.
I know what you've been saying about me. You think I'm an idiot? Huh? Is that what you think?
Boss, I ain't been saying nothing about you.
What the fuck? I don't know what's happening to me. Jesus, I'm getting paranoid, Tony. Really fucking paranoid. Just because I think everyone hates me doesn't mean they don't. Know what I mean?
If we add to it how CJ backstabbed the Don in the past, we could say that Salvatore may have thought that Claude was planning something behind his back and therefore decided to get rid of him. What Maria said may have just poured oil on the flames. Whatever the Salvatore's motives were, today we're focused on something else. What if Salvatore never betrayed Claude? Let's kick off with the first likely scenario. So, Claude would still be working for the Mafia. Now that the wars with the cartel and the triad are under control, the Mafia could start thinking about self-development. However, I think that at some point, Claude could ask Salvatore for help in getting revenge on Catalina. That obviously assuming that was actually Claude's objective throughout the story, which we could call into question. But yeah, in this scenario, let's assume it was. I reckon that Salvatore would easily agree to help Claude with hunting down Catalina, as it would also be a huge blow for the cartel, who, after all, were the Mafia's enemies, and maybe even a nail in their coffin. So, as the first point in this scenario, let's put Catalina's death at the hands of Claude with the help of the Leone Mafia. Let's also point out that because Salvatore never betrayed Claude, he wouldn't be forced to leave Portland, so he probably would never meet Asuka, Kenji or Donald Love. That also means that neither Asuka nor Kenji would die, as their deaths in GTA 3 were directly or indirectly caused by Claude. This would lead to Yakuza growing strong, as the cartel, who was their main foe in the GTA 3 story, would be already defeated by the Mafia. With both Yakuza and the Mafia Leone becoming Liberty City's leading forces, it's natural that at some point there is going to be a war between these gangs. Personally, I think that the fact that the Mafia has Claude on their side would prove to be decisive. I just think that the Mafia would win this war. Claude would just then help the Mafia maintain their position in the city, or potentially start his own thing, some business or something like that. Anyway, I think we can end this scenario here, as going any further would just be pure imagination. Let's jump into the second scenario. In this scenario, Claude gets irritated by the fact that the Mafia won't let him become an official member because of his nationality. You know, in the Italian Mafia, in order to become somebody significant, you have to have Italian origins. Actually, we've got a great example of that in the GTA series. See, in GTA 4, Phil Bell has never been made a capo of the Pecorino family, even though he definitely deserved it. That was because he was only 10% Italian. The majority of his family was Irish. Going back to Claude, unlike Phil, he would get frustrated that he can't become someone important in the hierarchy of the organization, even though he clearly was very important. That obviously would mean getting less money than if he was a capo. So what could Claude do? Well, the first thing that came to my mind is that he would start his own gang, as joining any other gang, for example the Yakuza, meant literally the same thing. In Yakuza, you also had to have Japanese origins in order to climb up the ladder in the organization. The problem is that I just can't see Claude as a leader of the gang. I mean, in fact, I can't even see him as a capo either. It's mainly because he was a mute. Imagine Claude as a capo in some Mafia meeting where they're thinking about a strategy of war or something. What would it look like? What? Claude writing down his thoughts on a piece of paper? Plus, the way you speak is definitely one of the crucial elements of leadership. It could be a way of showing your position. If someone speaks confidently, loud, etc., they are often more respected, rather than a person who speaks quietly or stutters. In this case, Claude would not say anything at all, which not only would make communication a challenge, but also could result in Claude losing authority as his men simply wouldn't respect him. So I think that Claude starting his own gang is a bit stretched. That's why I thought that maybe Claude, instead of focusing on helping just one organization, would try in different places, but simultaneously. What I mean is that Claude would keep working for the Mafia, but in secret would also run errands for other people like Asuka or even Donald Love. Remember that Asuka was Maria's friend, so at some point she could introduce Claude to her. In terms of Love, Claude could meet him in the same way he met him in the original story, through Ray Machowski, who was Asuka's source in the police. Then Claude would do a similar thing to what was the case in the original story as well. For example, in GTA 3, Claude could work for the Jamaicans and at the same time fight against them for Kenji. In this case though, Claude would look for more gainful opportunities, such as mentioned Yakuza, the Leone Mafia or Donald Love. From this point, it could go in many different ways. It's likely that one of the organizations would realize that Claude is helping their rivals and would try to whack him. Or maybe Claude would at some point decide to stay loyal to one party, abandoning the rest. If that was the case, Claude would probably choose to work for Donald Love, as he didn't require his hitmen to be of a certain nationality and he paid big time, especially in comparison to Yakuza or the Leone Mafia. With Donald, Claude could get to the very top of the criminal underworld of Liberty City, unless he would run away without saying a word to Claude just like he did in GTA 3, but who knows. Now the last scenario we're going to talk about is most definitely the wildest out of the three. However, I don't think that is far-fetched at all. Alright, let me tell you what it is though. So, after the sinking of the cartel's ship, Catalina's gang has to regroup and get on their feet again. Catalina is aware that the main reason for which the Mafia is winning with them is Claude. She realizes what she lost by betraying him. So, she figures out that getting Claude out of the picture is the only way for them to stand a chance in the war with the Mafia. Therefore, Catalina delegates many soldiers to hunt Claude down. Claude is forced to hide. The work for the Mafia has become a challenge as he's got half of the Colombians in the city waiting for any wrong move. Claude eventually gets tired of this. He figures out that if Catalina so desperately is trying to kill him, that means she finally respects him, values him. And now, hear what? Claude surrenders to Catalina and offers her to help her fight against the Leone Mafia. I know, sounds wild, but let me explain. In my opinion, Claude, following Catalina's betrayal of him, lost all motivation in life. that is because he still loved Catalina even though she turned out to be one double-crossing piece of ish. By the way, it's pretty similar to what Toshiko Kassen felt to Kazuki in GTA LCS. The way that Claude doesn't build any bond with any of the characters in GTA 3 hints that he just don't give two hoots about anyone or anything. For me, that's him losing all motivation in life after losing Catalina, the only thing in the world that could make him happy. Going back to our scenario, Claude would see his opportunity to reunite with Catalina, who this time will value him. And obviously, they wouldn't be in a proper relationship, although who knows. Catalina, feeling that Claude is genuine, accepts his offer. First, of course, she asks him to do something which would prove his loyalty, like killing Salvatore or something like that. Claude would handle it, and then Cartel would probably take over the city. They not only have the advantage by selling highly addictive spank, but now also have Claude on their side, who is prepared to do anything his beloved Catalina asks him. Let me know what you think about the possibilities that I showed you today, and as well, write in a comment what are your ideas, as that's what it's all about. Also, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. Meanwhile, I'm saying goodbye. Respect.